Coach, briefly talk about the last week San Francisco and an offensive outburst. You guys score 5 goals, shut out the Gators. Had to be feeling good about that, but then you get to Sunday probably thinking, hey, if we could have saved a couple of goals. But overall, you get the split to come back and over the weekend. So thoughts on the performance?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a microcosm of what it means to be in this conference on the plus side and the negative side. The score reflects on Friday that the game was probably a bigger difference between the two teams than there really was. And the same could probably be said on Sunday. And the reality is any game that we play in this conference, you have the ability to do what we did on Friday, and you have the ability to do what we did on Sunday. And it's a couple of mistakes, a little bit of lack of focus, a little bit of lack of concentration, and all of a sudden you build a little confidence and get a couple of goals and go from there and end up having a nice win like we did on Friday, or you give up a couple of goals and lose a little confidence and end up having a result like we did on Sunday. And for our standpoint, I think we're competing in all of these games. It's just to find a way to be more consistent, to get a result on Friday and Sunday, and not just be satisfied with getting a good game on Friday and see what happens on Sunday.
It's going to be a while until you guys come back home. In fact, you guys will end the season at home, but 5 consecutive contests, on the road. How do you prepare your guys? I mean, it's getting toward the final stretch of the season, but how do you prepare the guys being on the road for a couple weeks now?
We've discussed this as we've gone along through the whole season. There are certain difficulties that go along with participating in this program, travel being one of the biggest. So, it's just part of what it means to be in this program and to be at Humboldt State. It's difficult, but it's a hurdle that we have to be willing to jump over and to deal with if we're going to find success. And we can't allow it to be an excuse, and we can't allow it to be a reason why we don't go into any of these games feeling like we can't compete and have a chance to win.
When you look at the standings right now, third place. I mean, what, 2 wins back of Monterey Bay. You take on San Bernardino, a team that has 2 conference wins in the South Division. But just talk about where you guys stand in the standings right now. I mean, obviously you want that top spot, but anything could happen. I mean, you guys are right there.
Yeah, I mean, Sunday was a huge game for us. I mean, it was a 6-point swing. Playing against Monterey was an opportunity to close the gap against them and put us in a much better situation. So it was a huge game. But the games don't get easier, and they don't count less as the season goes on, unless you're just out of the picture. And we're not. We're still in the mix, like you said, and we're in a good position. We need some help. We need somebody to get some results against Monterey to give us a chance to move up the standings. But the conference is so difficult, anything could happen. I mean, we could go and win out the rest of the way and be in a position to win the North. Monterey could go and lose a few games and drop a few games and give us a chance to move up. Every game is difficult and every game is a battle, and we just have to go out and find a way to be consistent. And I think that's the message we've been preaching all year. The question is, are we going to get it done?
What have you noticed about Friday or your next opponent at San Bernardino?
San Bernardino was picked early on to be one of the top teams in our conference. They've lost a couple of key attacking players, which has kind of limited them. They lost those players early in the season, but all of their results show that they're competitive in every game. They're a difficult team to play against. They're struggling for confidence at this point, my guess is, because they're not getting the results. But it is a team that is a good team that's full of good players. That's going to make the game very difficult for us. And if we don't go down there and do the things that we need to do and be sharp and disciplined, focused, it's a game that we could easily come away with nothing from. So just because the team doesn't have wins in this conference doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a good team.
This is your first round through the CC2A, being your first year. What has your general impression been? Like you said, it's very tough. Probably knew that going in, but I guess now that you've actually seen them, what have your impressions been of?
Well, this is actually my 8th season in the conference. This is my first season with the Humboldt, so it's not necessarily technically my first go around, but It's exactly what I knew it was going to be, which is a difficult game every weekend. Just like we just alluded to, I mean, there are teams in our conference that have 2 or 3 wins like us that feel like they could be doing better, and it's just a question of getting results week in and week out. We've lost a few close games in overtime against Stanislaus and Cal State LA, where if we get those results in games that we feel like we have an opportunity to, it could be a completely different picture for us. Instead of being in 3rd place, a few points out of 1st, we could be right there at the top of the table and be in a completely different conversation. So, like I said, finding the consistency to get the results that your performance merits is the battle that we're fighting right now. We've had 5 or 6 really good performances in a row. We haven't had 5 or 6 wins in a row. And crossing that line is going to determine what kind of a season that we have. Do we have a season full, that we look back on and regret and wonder what could have been, or do we have a season where we look at it and say, hey, we managed to turn it around, we finished the season with a good string of wins and put ourselves into contention for a conference tournament berth.
And, obviously, excuse me, you want, results these last, I think, 6 games. What else are you looking for from your team, heading down the final stretch of the race?
Well, obviously, based on the stats, you don't have to look too deep into it to recognize that we're not doing well defensively. I think we've been performing well, we just haven't been getting the results that we need. And I think in this conference, you get punished for mistakes. If you are not sharp for the entire game and you make one mistake, you lose concentration a couple of times, you don't deal with situations, teams aren't going to have any mercy on you, and they're going to punish you. All you have to do is look at our game on Sunday and see we gave up a goal with 10 seconds to go in the game to recognize nobody's going to come in and say, hey, let's take it easy on Humboldt. We're feeling sorry for them, because they have that result. That's not going to happen. And we have to be better defensively. That's the bottom line. We cannot average 2.5 to 3 goals a game against and expect to get results. We have performed well for the majority of the time, but we find ways to shoot ourselves in the foot with a mistake here, a lack of focus there, and we give up goals in crucial moments. And we're not going to be in any kind of postseason conversation if we can't clean that aspect of our game up.
I'll ask you one last question. The season that Zach Hammond's having, I think he still leads the conference with 10 goals. Being new to the HSU program, getting to know him, did you expect this out of him this season?
To be honest, we have, I would say, 4 or 5 guys on our roster that have the same potential. Zach's a great player. He's a great athlete. He gives us a lot of positive leadership in the attack and going forward. And obviously, he's gotten into a good vein of performance and getting results through goals. But we have a couple other guys that are just as capable of that. Did I think it was going to happen? I mean, it certainly is a possibility. I mean, anytime you have a player with the kind of talent and athleticism that you put together in a package like Zach has, the potential is always going to be there. But it's a fickle game. Confidence plays into it, and finding consistency and having opportunities to step up and get it done. It's hard to say, but you got to give credit to Zach for what he's done and what he's helped us with this year. Now we're going to try to find a way to shore up the rest of our game and make sure that we're there matching that. It's definitely a benefit to have somebody leading the conference and scoring.
Great.